This week on MS Refresh, all that is new, great, and underwhelming in Microsoft Teams for October 2022. Plus, more detail from Microsoft Ignite, including a full-on creativity suite, and Microsoft partners with Meta on their vision of Web 3.0. All that and more. Subscribe to stay in the know. This is the MS Refresh Show. Hi there, and welcome to the Matt and Sean 365 Refresh Show. This is episode 73 for the work week of October 17th, 2022. In this month's episode devoted to Microsoft Teams news. Coming to you from the West Coast, my name is Sean Bugler.
And from the East Coast, my name is Matt Wade.
Matt Wade, how are you coping with the come down from Microsoft Ignite? The roller coaster, the fire hose. How are you coping?
Just a lot to read, I guess. I haven't dived into a whole lot of sessions, into the deep dives. I just haven't had time. It's kind of the downside of it being an online event, I think, actually, or the online first hybrid event, because it's, I don't know, just difficult to keep up with all the stuff that gets posted in all the various different places. And a lot of the wording is now seems to be getting copy pasted between them so that they are looked at from the perspective of how you're coming into it from, oh, I want to know about Teams rooms. And it's like, yeah, but I just want to know about the Teams updates. You know,
Yeah, there definitely is. We joke about this a lot. The overlap between announcements, like there'll be, 5 or 6 different blog posts, but they ultimately have the same 4 announcements. I like this part of the post-conference experience because this is the part where the detectives start to surface on Twitter, and you can start to see some interesting announcements that weren't made as announcements. They were just kind of offhanded remarks, and we'll be kind of surfacing those up over the next couple of weeks as we, get back into our rhythm here. But one that I'll mention, and I'll throw a link to this in the show notes. Somebody had made mention in one of the breakout sessions. They indicated that in the message center, they'll be updating the announcements to indicate the timeline of certain feature releases specific to your tenant. So kind of that thing that broadly the roadmap does, but targeted specifically to feature announcements in the message center, which is great. I think we all would like a little bit more pinpoint accuracy on when these things are actually going to impact us there. So it seems like the message center is getting some love.
Yeah, that would be great. I would very much appreciate that, especially if it really is specific to my tenant, since things roll out to different tenants and even different users at different times. So if it's as good as it sounds, it's probably not. It's great. And if it's not as good as it sounds, it's still an improvement.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the fact of the matter is somebody is paying attention to that to some degree. My interesting question with that would be whether that is true or would ever be true for GCC High, or whether there would ever be that sense of transparency of this is, currently sitting on some bureaucrat's desk in DC, and we're just waiting for a rubber stamp.
Yep. Yeah, seriously. Well, I guess what I'm going to say is we got a lot to talk about because there's a lot of updates on what's coming to Teams this month, plus a lot of Ignite announcements we wanted to cover to make sure the Teams community is aware of what's coming and what some of the big announcements were. And then there's a bunch of other things we want to talk about today. So I'm going to make the suggestion that we just jump right into the news now.
Let's do it.
This is the news.
On a bit of a surprising note, Microsoft 365 officially gets an icon to go with its name, and all references to Office and Office 365 are transitioning to the Microsoft 365 brand. For any other product brand, this would make perfect sense, but it seems a bit odd when 12 of the characters in the Microsoft 365 name, 3/4 are the company name. So it's almost as if they're inadvertently rebranding the company in a way. The brand change affects Office.com and the Office apps for mobile and Windows. Office.com will transition to the Microsoft 365 Hub in November, and the apps will update in January. The big holdout on this all-encompassing Microsoft 365 brand was their Relic Office 365 enterprise licensing options, which their FAQ states won't be changing for now. So the Office 365 brand continues to add confusion. We'll see how the new brand further works its way into the UIs and whether users align to in similar ways to the historic orange O icon of the Office brand for the past couple of decades. Jumping on to something equally surprising, a recent partnership between Microsoft and Meta, also known as Facebook, formalizes support for Meta's Quest headsets for mixed reality meetings, as well as use of the Microsoft 365 apps while wearing the headsets. That's what I want, to have Microsoft strapped to my face. Coming to Teams collaboration this month, message search results will finally bring you the full conversation rather than just the message, which improves the overall Teams search experience a ton. The Viva Insights Digest email, soon to be known simply as the Viva email, very exciting, will let you personalize content in the email to favorite certain items and deprioritize others. And Viva Insights will provide suggestions on when to send one-on-one chat messages based on colleagues' work hours and availability, making use of the new delayed send feature, which is perfect for me because my office hours are between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Meetings. Coming this month for meetings and calls in Teams, meeting scheduling forms and info pages can pop out into another window, so you can have multiple meeting info pages open at once, offering a bit more Outlook feature parity. Excel Live, where you can collaborate with meeting participants on a shared Excel file without having to change its permissions or share the file outside of the meeting, its general availability. Viva Insights will provide personalized insights and suggestions to help improve their meeting habits. And for calls, you'll soon be able to include hold music, and the call history is getting a lot more detail for looking back on a call. Coming this month, Teams in the worlds of integration, the ability to set Adobe Acrobat as the default app for PDF viewing and editing in Teams is on the way. Teams approvals will integrate with Microsoft Lists, an obvious and welcome upgrade for people to track things, but still route through the native Microsoft standard status tracking service. And approval histories will be able to be printed to PDF as a proof of approval history for storing in other systems, something that a lot of organizations have been asking for. Viva Sales, a new seller experience application that brings together your CRM and Microsoft 365 into the team experience, goes to general availability this month. And for those folks in GCC Moderate, Teams connectors, including webhook integrations, are finally coming. To close things out, some due dates on Ignite Teams items. So here's some of the big ticket Teams announcements from Ignite and when the roadmap allegedly says they'll be available. The Mesh Avatars, the Teams version of Memoji in meetings, doesn't have a due date, but you can sign up for public preview using the link in the show notes. Microsoft Teams Premium, which will include meeting guides, custom meeting branding, security and encryption, advanced virtual appointments, meeting recap, and live translated captions, which I should note is a feature that already exists that they've decided to make premium on a whim, is set for public preview in December and general availability in February 2023. You can sign up for the public preview for that as well using the link in the show note. Microsoft Places, a new service built in some part on top of Teams Rooms, will be available in 2023, just 2023 at some point, though no specific month nor preview schedule has been made available. The new channel experience, or Channels 2.0, which offers more post types and a sort order where newer posts are on top instead of on the bottom of the UI, will be in private preview by December. Expanded reactions will be generally available in November. The ability to add people to a private chat using an @mention will be available by December, as will the ability to @mention everyone in a private chat by using the @everyone. The mythical delete chat and schedule send features will be making their debut in December as well. Sending a video clip in a private chat is generally available on desktop and will be in public preview on mobile by December. Work hours and location will be in private preview by December. And to close things out, Loop components will extend to Outlook and Whiteboard. They are in targeted release now and will be generally available by December.
That was the news.
Well, Sean, thank you so much. That was excellent and a lot of a lot of stuff to cover.
Yeah, it was funny. I think we got a lot of comments on our videos, both on, YouTube itself and of course on Twitter and LinkedIn, where people are like, what about X? What about Y? And I was like, well, there's more. We know there's more, but it was a hard enough time keeping it under 20 minutes and we didn't even do that.
Yeah, totally. Before we jump into any big topics, although we have a couple of good ones to talk about, I think today, I just wanted to give everybody a heads up. So after big conferences like this, Microsoft, or typically in like the deep dive sessions, the presenters will include a slide at the end that is supposed to show off the roadmap. I don't know if that's like a requirement or if it just is that people show it because the audience probably would appreciate it. But there is no central place to find these things. And it's very annoying because sometimes the Microsoft 365 roadmap doesn't get updated at the timeliness and level of detail that it should, perhaps. And a lot of times these roadmap slides are some of the best information that you have at the time. And while they don't organize them into a single like central source of truth, which like, hey, Microsoft, you sit on a couple $1 trillion in value. I think you can afford having somebody go off and add this stuff to the book of news. Just my suggestion. But I do
I'll
have
do
to
it.
say, I know, right? Like do it on a consulting basis. But there is one extraordinary Microsoft MVP, most valuable professional, Sue Hanley, puts these together every year. This link to this tweet that she put out earlier this week is in the show notes. It has a list of pretty much all of the deep dive session roadmap slides, and she grabs a screenshot, puts them all into one centralized PowerPoint slideshow that she shares from her OneDrive, and it's one of the I think it's like near the top of like the most liked or retweeted tweets from the event, and definitely one of the highest from definitely one of the highest from a not Microsoft employee. All right, so I was hopeful that would help people find the roadmap stuff. And that brings us to topics for today. So, Sean, what stood out to you Teams-wise or from Microsoft Ignite announcements? We didn't talk about everything, definitely. So what's been bopping around your head?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest takeaways they got here that wasn't necessarily Teams-centric was Microsoft diving headlong into the creative space. Microsoft's been kind of toying around with some creative aspects of it. Think about like Microsoft Designer and things like that. One of the first announcements that they came out of the gate with here was this new portal, create.microsoft.com or Microsoft Create. And the idea behind it here is that this is a jumping off point for your ability to create anything in the Microsoft 365 space, whether it's a Word document, a PowerPoint presentation, an Excel spreadsheet, etc. It's actually kind of a rebrand of the existing templates portal that already exists today. A lot of people don't know that this exists, and it was a really great place to go to get kind of basic templates. There was like personal finance stuff. There were resume templates. There were PowerPoint designs that you could tap into that didn't leverage Microsoft's PowerPoint themes, which was confusing. But this is kind of the next step in that here is to start to kind of showcase what's possible in the platform. It's actually one good way to look at it is it's kind of like a lookbook. It's kind of the new lookbook for all the other platforms in the Microsoft universe, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really interesting. It's available today. And it's something that I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of value out of, especially as we start to talk about some of these other announcements here. Matt, one thing that you mentioned is it kind of looks like Adobe Spark. It's got a very similar design language to a lot of their like sizzle videos, the marketing videos that Microsoft has been using as of late, which is kind of nice. Like it helps you think, maybe I can create some of the stuff that we're seeing in these nifty videos here. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think it's great in that respect. It was kind of funny, even in their announcement, they even used the word spark, like the spark inspiration. That was kind of funny. So I think these are great. The one thing that I always am getting a little bit worried or cautious about is that once Microsoft dives into one of these areas that, there's a void in our platform offering, so we need to fill that void. Well, they don't necessarily fill the void. They partially fill it, right?
Right.
Like Microsoft Planner is great, except when it's not, right? It doesn't do everything Trello does, right? It's not the be all end all Kanban solution out there, and then doesn't get a ton of love after the initial rollout and some minor updates they make after initial like very loud user feedback. So admittedly, I've not used this yet. I was aware of the template space, and you're really talking like the Office app templates, right? Like the Excel, the spreadsheets or Word documents. Yeah, okay, so this extends that. I haven't looked at the graphics part yet, but I'm very much happy with the idea of the graphics stuff because if there's another option that comes in my license that I already have, and I don't have to pay for Adobe licensing or additional Adobe licensing because that's super expensive. That's a pretty great opportunity, unless it's going to turn into like the stock photos option in SharePoint, where there's only so many of them, and you start seeing the same damn stock photos in every SharePoint page everywhere.
Oh, they're updating new photos. They're uploading new photos. That's
okay.
I think they could do like that for now. Like if you take a look, they actually have a new banner or badge on the new photos that they upload here. But yeah,
Okay,
no,
that's fair.
I'm looking forward to seeing what this becomes. I'd love to see this transition a little bit further into something that organizations could take advantage of. So,
Yeah.
be able to create new Word templates and use the company theme, Excel spreadsheets, and be able to use, kind of our standard finance template or whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is to your point. They're not filling a void; they're papering over it right now. But as to whether they continue to push that forward is going to be interesting here.
Yep.
Continuing on with creative announcements here, another one that they re-announced, but kind of said like it's here now. Microsoft acquired a company called Clipchamp a year ago, a while back.
Yeah.
And they've been talking about incorporating it into the broader M365 universe here. It's here. So Clipchamp is a video editor tool. It's got royalty-free graphics and stock videos that you can tap into here. And it's all web-based, which is really, really cool. And the idea behind it here is that users can take advantage of just basic video editing. Now, one thing I thought was interesting is that they didn't incorporate this into the stream aspect of it here. And so some part of me feels like this is still somewhat consumer focused, but still could be beneficial for the enterprise space, which is why it's being kind of showcased alongside the M365 universe. But it is just kind of an interesting, like, oh, you've got dual video things happening here and you're not they didn't even try to like bridge the divide between them.
Yeah, I never even thought about that. That is a stupidly obvious thing that I should have realized, but you're right. Like they should have these resources built right into Stream as you're doing your video recordings and all the other features that like new Stream is supposed to come out with. And that new Stream is like the big, video upgrade for Office, which like for hosting and watching, sure, but not for creating. Right about that. That's really interesting. I never thought about that.
So I'm curious. I mean, they kept the Clipchamp name, so they're like minimal kind of from a 10,000 foot view, minimal changes with respect to that. Obviously, I'm sure there was a ton of things done behind the scenes to architect it in a way that like plugs it in and leverages all the infrastructure of M365. But I would be interested to see if over the long kind of arc of the M365 package that Clipchamp just steadily kind of gets chopped up and incorporated into Stream, and that's why they didn't kind of rebrand or try to tie them together. That's just kind of a longer term strategy. But irrespective, I've taken a look at Clipchamp. I haven't used it personally here, but they've got a mobile app. They've got the web app, and I think that even if it does just the basics well of being able to trim and edit and add a title card and things like that, that's going to be really beneficial to users out of the gate. So I'm interested to see what that kind of how that plays out. Have you had a chance to play with Clipchamp?
I haven't played with it myself. Once they acquired it, they actually offered free access to it to all MVPs originally. And I was telling myself, oh, I'll use this. And I never got to it. But I'm thinking it's not like it's more like a Microsoft Editor or Microsoft Designer or Editor, even like service and underlying service. It should be usable in all of the tool sets. Now, video isn't so useful in say like Excel, but definitely useful in PowerPoint, definitely useful in Sway, right? Potentially useful for
Sway. I haven't heard that name in 15 years.
But I guess it could be useful in like even like Teams for like announcements and things like that. If you wanted to like include video there, definitely Yammer. So I don't see why it wouldn't just become an underlying service that has like a button under the toolbar for for Yammer posts or for a button in the ribbon for PowerPoint and anything else that might have multimedia use cases, not just Stream. Which I would assume it would kind of become something like that, but also has a portal entry point for you if you want it.
I will give Microsoft credit that I think the trend of announcements that we've seen over the last 2 years, maybe even 3 if you want to be generous, has been, as opposed to mimicry of existing functionality with net new products, has been to try and bind these things together in a little bit more of an intentional way. So that we do personal automation through Microsoft Lists and just finding new ways to incorporate Microsoft Lists into the other areas of the M365 universe, or like the fact that like the polls loop component is powered by Microsoft Forms as opposed to creating a brand new polling experience from scratch. So I'm optimistic that we're seeing them trend in the right direction with that, and that this will just be another bit of evidence for that over the long term. The last thing that I wanted to talk about here in the creative universe is brand new. Now, Matt, you might not remember, but like 6 months ago, we talked about the fact that they were working on this. We didn't know what it was going to look like necessarily, but we had caught wind that there was a designer.microsoft.com URL and that it would load. You could try to sign into it, but and whether it was because it wasn't a home base Microsoft user account or otherwise, we couldn't get in. But we knew it existed. We had a logo and all that. Microsoft Designer was finally announced at Microsoft Ignite. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Canva, which is a web-based graphic design tool here, it feels very familiar. So the idea behind Microsoft Designer here is that it is all about graphic design in the sense that you can have different templates, you can have different canvas sizes here, and it's got a bunch of royalty-free graphics. It's got a bunch of royalty-free fonts that you can tap into here. But what's really, really different about Microsoft Designer versus Canva is it's got a ton of AI, artificial intelligence powered feature sets. Now, this all comes from Microsoft's partnership with OpenAI. This is the company that has GPT-3, which is the human natural language model. They also have DALL-E 2, DALL-E, which is the text to image graphic generator. And so you can actually see here, like as we're going through the visual here, the ability to like describe an image and have it just generate that image that you can just use, like not have to worry about royalties or anything like that, because that graphic simply didn't exist before that moment, is amazing. Now, it's not available just yet. You can sign up for the waitlist, which I did moments after it was announced at designer.microsoft.com. Now, Matt, you and I, like between you and I on this show, I use Canva for kind of the graphics that we use for the news background and occasionally for some other things. But you use Photoshop, right? Or Illustrator.
I am not qualified in Illustrator. I do Photoshop a lot, though.
Photoshop. Yeah. So coming through the lens, like I definitely come from the perspective of like, I don't want to have to know 40 different tools to do kind of one thing. If I want to remove the background, for example, I want to be able to like click a picture and click a button that says remove background, and for it to be smart enough to know what part is the background and just remove it. And obviously Photoshop does that to some degree, but I'm definitely through the lens of like, just let me do the thing.
Yeah.
What do you think about something like this?
So I'm very much in favor of using this stuff as long as it's reasonably good. So I'm not a graphic designer, but I know Photoshop well enough to know the tools that I need to use to produce the things I want to make, right? And honestly, what you just said, the remove background is probably one of the strongest features that Photoshop has that other things don't. Like that's one of my biggest pet peeves with PowerPoint, for example, is that the remove color background doesn't let you pick the place where you want it to be removed. It picks the color. So if you want to remove a white background and there's white elsewhere in the graphic you're working with, that
or God forbid there are shadows, right?
That's an awful experience. Whereas Photoshop can let you do that a lot more smartly. You can change, how much impact it has on it, and it can do it in one place as opposed to the whole place. And I'm really hoping that something like this would offer some upgrades to PowerPoint when you're working with images. Anyway. I do like Photoshop because I'm able to make all the layers and I can move things around. But the downside to that is I have to go out and source all of my resources myself. The fact that this can go off and make things, I think it'll come down to for people who, I think especially for people who are not like professional designers, I'm not, but who do have some skill set in design and using premium tools like Photoshop. What we probably like and what I like is the flexibility and the things that I can do with it. I could see myself liking Microsoft Designer, but then not liking it because it doesn't let me move some things around pixel by pixel if I want to. It just
Right.
gives me whatever it outputs, and then it's going to be like, well, that's not what I want, so I just can't use it. So I'll be very interested to see what kind of level of control you have over the different pieces of something, because just that demo video that you just showed there clearly has multiple. It's got a background color, then it's got like a shape on top of that, then it's got a cake on top of that, then it's got text, and each of these things can be different colors, and all of that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how much control you have over each layer, and what kind of font options you have, and can you install your own proprietary fonts, and like what kind of control do you have, because proprietary fonts are a really big deal in branding, right? If you can't do that, then what's the point? Is going to be what a lot of especially professional designers say. And if the goal here is to sort of citizen developerize graphic design, which is absolutely a positive thing, I think, you need to be able to give them the flexibility or the control over what the output is. Otherwise, the folks that do control this stuff and have that expert experience are going to say, nope, not good enough.
Right. Yeah. So Canva sets a really high bar. For those of you that haven't used Canva, it's free. You can sign up canva.com and try it out. I think that if Microsoft is trying to create a one-to-one in terms of like capabilities, Designer has a really, really high ceiling of possibility. From my perspective, if Microsoft can deliver on that plus AI, my organization pays for Canva licensing. We'll drop that. We'll go to Microsoft Designer, because obviously it's like, part of our M365 licensing package. And the AI components alone are super compelling. But if they can't do that, like if, to your point, as we're looking through the wizard here, this, you don't really see too much of it, but you do get the sense that for those people who have used Canva before, this is a very Canva-esque experience with a little bit of a wizard up front to help us take advantage of that. So I'm optimistic that, kind of like PowerPoint Designer, where it's going to kind of make a couple of decisions for you up front and let you kind of run with it from there, is what we'll ultimately end up seeing in the Microsoft Designer experience when it goes live. Whenever. I'm hoping that we see kind of a limited preview before the end of the year, but I'm not optimistic.
Yeah. I will say it's a good thing there's AI involved there, because I had no idea what amber meant. I had to look that up myself. So like apparently it's an old card game, but it also is a French word for shaded. So that must be where the color comes in.
I think it's pronounced ombre.
Well, you can have a word with the dictionary app in Google. So by all means, I'm curious. Also, so your organization, we only take the best in class tool set. You're willing to give up on Canva to go to Microsoft? I figured you wouldn't take on something good unless it was, Stuart Butterfield himself came up with the citizen developer version of graphic design, and democratizing beauty among the world from the Butterfield viewpoint.
I think from our perspective, you're 100% right. Like, my organization is definitely we're very proud of the fact that we put our money where our mouth is in terms of like the tools that tend to be the best of breed within their space. To that end, I don't think there's an argument to make that Microsoft has never been anything but the best when it comes to like the PowerPoint-esque types experiences here, which is we're going to give you a blank canvas. You can do whatever the hell you want with it. So I'm optimistic that they can apply that in addition to the AI components here, because like I was saying earlier, if Microsoft can deliver on feature parity with Canva, which by the way, Canva lets you upload custom fonts and things like that, lets you set brand packages and things like that. So if Microsoft can get even close to that plus AI for free, that's compelling.
Not the US, my opinion, but the only best in class thing that I think Microsoft has ever actually produced is Excel. Even Word is subpar to LaTeX. And PowerPoint is still kind of subpar to Keynote. I will just throw that out there.
I would agree. It's funny you mentioned that there was an interview with whomever's in charge of the G Suite productivity suite collection of tools. And one of the questions the journalist asked was like, are you going to beat Excel? And the person laughs and says, you'll never beat Excel, because we give users 10 million cells, and 2 minutes later, somebody's going to go, but what about 25 million?
Right.
So you're never going to beat Excel.
Nope. And that's why, so much of the financial industry sits on Access and Excel across the world, and they shouldn't, but it does, because it's a ubiquitous tool and anybody can use it.
Daunting to work on the product team. Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. Cheese and peas.
That's all I've got on the creative side of things. And obviously more to come as we actually see these things in hand. But Matt, anything pop up on your side of the fence that you thought was interesting?
Yeah, so I thought we would talk a little bit about this whole Meta Microsoft partnership and bringing the Teams and M365 experience into the mixed reality space. So there were two announcements that they made. Well, actually, it kind of leaked first, and then it was announced, and then there were a number of journalistic organizations and tech blogs that came out with some viewpoints on it. But if you're not familiar, so Meta is the owner of Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and a number of other things, including Quest, which is the headset tool or a headset device to compete with like HoloLens and other devices like that. So the partnership between Teams and Meta is such that the Teams experience is going to be supported in the Meta Quest devices. And their kind of statement here is that it's going to be designed to help people gather virtually in the place where work happens on any devices, including mixed reality headsets. So the Meta Quest Pro and Meta Quest 2 devices will enable people to collaborate in a Microsoft Teams meeting. There wasn't a ton to show. The screenshot is kind of all they showed, unfortunately. Of course, we have seen the references to the, avatars and whatnot, the earlier form peg people now kind of turning into their own little version of emojis that you might see in Apple products. And this is the one where I just don't see how this is going to be something people want to do. I guess I give them credit for thinking it might be something they might want, but I just don't see conferences, meetings, things like that being in a virtual space.
Sure.
Humans either want it to be in person or they want to be on a camera or have their camera off. And having that avatar pop up might be cool the first couple of times, but I think it's kind of like when the pandemic kicked off and everybody realized they could change their background in Zoom, that they brought up the Office background or the Simpsons couch, and like that was funny the first two times, and then you just didn't do it anymore. And I feel like we're probably going to get into that. But I will say the one thing that I have been actually pretty interested in, because I'm very much a metaverse skeptic when it comes to like bringing people together in a virtual space, because I just don't see the use case there. It's very awkward, clunky, and I don't think you're ever going to get that killer app that like brings people there outside of a very niche group of people. But the thing that I did see that I actually am somewhat interested in is the concept of bringing the Microsoft 365 apps to headsets like this. So This display here really piques my interest. And the reason for that is because I think, or at least from my perspective of what do I want in the next generation device for computing or personal computing, is I don't want to carry around a laptop, right? I want to carry around a device the size of this, and I want it to connect to something that is in front of my eyes. Now, I don't want to be walking around with a headset on my head that's literally going to hurt my neck because it weighs so much. I don't want to sound like 2000s or early 2010s nostalgic here, but I think the concept of a Google Glass is and should be the next steps in computing, because in front of me, I can project whatever I want to see in whatever place I want to see it. And I think that's a very opposite direction from, say, like if you go back and watch Minority Report with Tom Cruise, where he's doing he's doing basically a dance, a ballet with his hands in front of a screen and like pulling things out and all that. And yes, you're going to have shared screens and shared spaces like that. But for the most part, most of the time that I'm on a computer, I'm doing it in front of my own screen, and it's my own private experience. And what is more private than a pair of glasses? And I think this sort of gets us in that direction. So if you look at the screenshot they provided, I have no idea if this is real or what is going to be shown here.
Of course it's not.
No, but like not real as in like, does it exist now? But is it real as in like, this is what the plan is to start? And I think that having these sort of curled windows in front of you, windows being like screens or open apps, is very much a real thing that I would love to have, because I shouldn't be limited to the, don't get me wrong, I'm very privileged to have two 28-inch monitors in front of me right now. That's a lot of space, but keeping things in the right spot and on top of each other, like I have a very large periphery that I can look at any given time when I want to. And I feel like that is the future of this. And the one thing I don't like is I don't like the fact that Meta is the one pushing this, because I don't necessarily love their privacy setup. And not to totally Apple fanboy, but like I am kind of hoping that they might come out with something similar. I know there's been a lot of rumor about an Apple version of Google Glass in the future. So that privacy is kind of kept because they push hard on privacy, or maybe Microsoft pushes harder on a more accessible, when I say accessible, I just mean smaller, lighter, not hurting your head for 8 hours a day headset with HoloLens. But I'm not ready to spend a couple grand on a big thing that over the next 2 years is going to become essentially irrelevant because the next version is going to be that much better. But I thought this was interesting because while I have no love and interest whatsoever for this whole avatar thing, the concept of the metaverse clearly to Microsoft at this point is not just about this. And to me, this is, I'm going to go so far as to say, kind of a waste of engineering time and probably going to be a flop. Whereas being able to look at an entire computing desktop in front of you and work on whatever applications or tools, and if nothing else, you can port over what's there today, right?
Right.
But imagine the possibilities when you actually move forward with augmented reality and you're able to measure things directly from, you know, a camera on that glasses setup. Or I still think the killer app is going to be when you can connect your contact list to like your Facebook account, your LinkedIn account, and AI can look at faces directly from the camera on it. And when you walk into a room, it can identify who people are, last time you saw them, let you know that you may not want to see them, right? So it gives you the opportunity.
abort.
No, but really, like, oh, you forgot somebody's name. Like, I'm terrible with names, right? And
Sure.
when people meet me in person, I'm awful, and I always feel so bad about it. But that my brain is just not wired for that. But like the killer app to me is a facial recognition connection between the contacts that I have or friends that I have or whatever. So it's not just like, here's the open white pages of everybody in the world, but the people that you're already connected with, right? That, oh, that's so-and-so, I haven't seen them in 5 years, and that's blah, 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 blah. And like pops up the most recent post about their, you know, I don't know, kid just graduated middle school or something like that. And it might sound very big brothery, and it probably is, but like, I feel like that's where we're going anyway. But that information, that's the type of technological information that I'm looking for as I move forward in life. And I feel like this is a great first step, and I would love to see this actually happen in the real world, and then expand with, you know, improvements to Teams where, you know, they're showing a meeting in here, right? The person talking pops out separately, or you can pop them out separately and have the rest of them in that still 3x3 or whatever. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. There's no opportunity in the PEG people space, the avatar space, but I think that the actual computing, personal computing, next gen being from a headset or a pair of glasses is absolutely there. And I just think Google Glass is probably way ahead of its time. It was the Apple
100%.
Newton of personal
of
computing.
augmented reality.
Yeah.
No, I 100% agree. And I would say to build on what you're saying, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I 100% agree that AR is where the killer apps are. Like, to be able to overlay and augment current reality with additional information and data and insight is very much where we're going. From my perspective, this is what gets people to buy it. But I also think, and this is kind of something, you know, you mentioned Apple, and we got to get a little bell every time we mention Apple.
You start charging.
Or like the kind of the rumors are that it'll be a mixed AR VR experience here. And so from my perspective, the ability to, you know, have some lightweight glasses, no different than what you're wearing here, that allow you to kind of see this experience, but to have the ability to kind of block out, you know, almost like visual earplugs, so that you can have like these focused experiences, these immersive experiences. I think that would be a really great middle ground. You know, to that end, I think we're way off from that here. Currently,
right.
the Meta Quest weighs like 700 grams or something like that. So I mean, talk about your neck hurting after a period of time. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, so we're a ways off here. I'm interested that Microsoft partnered with Meta on this one here. I think it speaks volumes about the fact that Microsoft is not confident in their own investments up to this point. You know, because I mean, like HoloLens, there was an article a couple of months ago that HoloLens development was slowing down. So it's anybody's guess that they'll continue to press forward with that as a consumer-facing or developer-facing product, as opposed to where Microsoft seems to be looking, which is much more industrial. They had an entire session at Ignite called the Industrial Metaverse, where they've made huge inroads. But there was also an article a week ago talking about how you know, soldiers in the field have been using Microsoft's kind of adapted version of HoloLens in the field, and they're not enthused with it here. So we're in the first inning.
Yeah.
I think we're all on the same page there. But it is interesting to see where Microsoft is like, well, how do we stay consumer relevant? And, you know, for all of their warts and boils, Meta is blazing the trail.
Yeah, I think it's also Microsoft has a history of supporting multiple platforms, right? Office was on, it is and was on Windows, Mac, Linux, and then.
Oh, interesting. Is this, from your perspective, to use that analogy, is this Microsoft's Apple or Meta's Apple moment where Microsoft swoops in and vouches for them?
I mean, maybe
they're at an all-time low right now.
Somebody's got to provide like I realize that they already provide it in the headset like this, but like a more like consumer friendly, or like just the concept of an operating system. Like what happens when I turn one of these things on? I actually don't know, because I've never used one of these devices before, right? I've never seen them be able to be used at a conference, and they're too expensive, and I don't have the use case to go off and geek out on it for that. The one time I have used a headset like this was at that Van Gogh experience thing that has been popping around the country. And they have a whole, one of the steps there is you can pay a little bit extra to actually walk through the paintings and see what the real life area was where his inspirations were, which is cool. The graphics were crappy, right? It all comes down to what can somebody build with this stuff, right? So you can give them all these things, and you can see all these great demos on like the Microsoft keynote stages where you have car companies coming in and looking at a 3D model of a thing before they actually go off and build a prototype. And like, yeah, but like somebody has to build that, and it has to have a ton of value, because the amount of expertise and work it's going to take to make something like that is incredibly expensive. So it has to save something else on the other end, where you saved on prototyping expenses, or welding engineers who need to be able to do the design, and then actual welders to build the prototypes out of the actual material that they're talking about. So if you can skip those steps, and sure, that's great, but you have to kind of show that value first. And I actually just saw, you were talking about the soldiers in the field. There was a post on Reddit this week where it showed one of those, I don't know which headset it was, but the concept was that the helicopter in front of them, they could see all of the MEP, or well, I guess electrical and mechanical work inside of the helicopter. And it was kind of interesting reading the comments, because the best part of Reddit is the comments, where people were saying, that's amazing that you can see basically X-ray vision. And then you had all these people who knew better, or actually read the article saying, well, no, it's from whatever the drawings say. So the real experience, that wire might have moved 10 millimeters over the course of the life of that helicopter. So it may not actually be there. If you're going to like go in and try to cut a piece of metal open to go work on it, you might cut something else up, that you didn't intend to. And it's kind of funny how you saw such a, wow, that's amazing. Then people got grounded, and then people saw that and go, oh, well, that's not very useful. And it's like, well, no, it's totally useful. Like, it's incredibly useful. It's just not useful for maybe what the video is implying, or what you or what you were thinking. To. Yeah, you as a consumer, or maybe a non-educated, uneducated in the field at least, potential user or person watching from the sidelines, just assumed it was better than it was, and then you were disappointed when you could have just said like, hey, what is this? Like if you're actually working in that area, like that is incredibly valuable to look around at any angle that you're looking, and to see that, oh yeah, there is that, the green wire is here. I don't want to cut that one. I think that's incredible.
I think we've belabored the point, but I'll close out with this. The killer app that I think it's all been in front of us this entire time, SharePoint Spaces. That's what Facebook is after.
That's why they made it. You're right. They wanted to be there, ready to go to pull the trigger, so that SharePoint Spaces can be the killer app of the whole metaverse. And we called it here. Yeah, you're right. You called it. I'm going to give you credit.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Well, that was a very insightful and kind of deep and technological discussion we had today. That was kind of fun.
Yeah.
We don't usually do that. We're usually very petty, and we just talk about, very checkbox things and things that are coming up. But yeah, it was kind of a fun little discussion. So thank you very much.
We'll use the views to determine whether or not people want this, or if they just want our snarky.
Yeah. Nobody cares what you people think. My goodness.
Well, we get.
No, I mean them saying that to us.
I know those are my favorite comments.
Yes, exactly. Exactly right.
There are chapters for a reason.
There are chapters. Jump ahead, or at this point, go back. But
go back. It's too late for you now. I'm sorry.
Watch it again. You're gonna be stuck on a loop in purgatory if you're not a better person in life. So fair warning. Anyway, I think that about does it. Thanks so much for watching. As always, a like and subscribe is much appreciated. Leave that comment below to start the discussion. We're very curious to hear what you think about the Ignite announcements, what the teams things that are coming up this month, etc. And then, of course, what do you think about this creative suite that Microsoft put out, and some of this cool VR, AR, MR? How many different realities are we going to have to deal with? Reality. How do you think about
reality?
RR? That's
reality.
Yeah, is that real reality? And yeah, so Sean, thanks so much for joining me this weekend. I can't wait to hang out with you, everybody else, again next week when we tackle the next topic in the area.
No, I know. I got in my head. All right. One more time. I promise.
Do you promise though?
Promise. Pinky swear.
Can we pinky swear across the
pinky?
I
just had to threaten the internet with a speed test, and suddenly it's like, no, we're cool.
I swear we're not throttling you.